Good morning. Appreciate y'all for tuning in and rocking with us for another edition of the Morning Breeze, man. Always rocking with you guys, as always, man. Outside of me, I got my guy, Mr. Media himself, Jordan JC, in the building. That's right. Friday's here. We've made it.
The best show
Another week.
Sports.
Bears fans feeling on top of the world. Oh my God! On today's show, we got to take a look at the free agent list that the Chicago Bears brought in and ask the question, who do we feel is going to have the most immediate impact in winning in this city? Take a look at the pieces individually. Look at what they all bring to the table. Look at the history of the team. And how we think this is going to start moving in the right direction. Appreciate y'all for rocking with us as always, man. Hit that like button, subscribe to the page, leave a 5-star review. Y'all know what to do. Gonna be a little solo action today, but we still gonna have a good time because the date is 3/14/2025. It's 7:05 in the morning. And at the end of the day, claws up, bird down. Get the coffees right. Hey. Because we having a good time, baby. Oh, God, we vibe. Oh, yeah, that's right. Oh, big design. You know I lost my mind. I'm in the game. I'm going crazy, feeling like I'm getting wavy. Yeah, you know I got it, baby. Go. Hold on. Don't let me get started on a Friday. Don't let me get started on a Friday. Don't let me get started on a Friday now. Appreciate y'all for tuning in and showing love. Hit that like button, subscribe to the page, leave a 5-star review. Y'all know what to do.
Come on. Push the button. Come on. Push the button. Come on, push the button.
Yeah, come on, push the button.
You heard what she said.
Y'all heard what Sue Young said. Hit that like button, subscribe to the page. King Booger World still on yesterday. JC Ice-T, really? No, that was nuts. That was nuts yesterday, man. That was hilarious, though, that he had no clue. And it was funny is after I showed him a couple of the videos of RevX, all of a sudden he was just like, I've heard this dude before. I was like, bro, this is like classic YouTube, dog. I don't know how you're confused on this right now. Hey, man. What did he say? Jacob Pong. I'm never saying claws up, Pat, is zesty. Yeah, claws up. Yeah, claws up. Bears down. Bear down. It is what it is. Appreciate y'all for tuning in and rocking with us as always, man. Let's talk a little bit of Bears football. Let's talk a little bit of Bears football, man, because Chicago Bears brought in some very, very key pieces. And I mean, listen, they basically revamped the entire trenches. I think that when you look at what they've done on the offensive side alone, for Caleb Williams, we have never seen this kind of commitment to a quarterback. When you talk about the fact that not only are you bringing in a new starting center, but also you're bringing in starting right guard in Jonah Jackson, which we did get confirmation that he's going to play right guard over the last couple of days, and a 4-time Super Bowl champion in Joe Thuney. Now you're having some conversations on a real impact offensive line that can start to help your young quarterback to figure out this NFL without having to be on his back 68 times a season. And so when you look at those three, let's start there. Let's start with the three on the offensive side because there's going to be other pieces at it. But let's start with the center position, the kind of impact that we think that Drew Dalman is going to have on this team. And they brought it out yesterday, and it was talked about a ton by Ben Johnson. And I thought that this was, to me, this is something that the Bears did have last season, but it wasn't meshed with good blocking, which is the only part of the position that really matters. At the end of the day, can you stop the guy who's standing across from you? Can you run somebody over? Can you hit somebody? Can you make an impact on the field when the nose tackle is standing across from you trying to kill your quarterback? But it was talked about the IQ that Drew Dalman is bringing in, how smart he is, how he's able to run an offense, how he's able to identify issues on the other side, how he's able to, okay, we got to point this out. We got fire over here. Yeah, we got helping the young quarterback understand what the defense is doing. That is the job of the center in every situation. And I'm not going to disrespect Coleman Shelton completely because I do think that Coleman Shelton did a lot of those things. I do think that Coleman Shelton was able to go out there more times than not and be able to identify things defensively, be able to call certain things out, and put his quarterback in a better situation. The problem was the ball would go set hut, Coleman Shelton would fall on his back, and he'd be beetling by the time Caleb Williams is dead on the ground. That was your biggest issue. And so when I see the tape on Drew Dalman, who's a couple inches shorter than Coleman Shelton was, but same weight, but used very differently. And to me, right, the conversation starts with how he anchors himself, doesn't allow himself to get pushed backwards, doesn't allow himself to get pushed around. I thought that Grady Jarrett described it perfectly when he was talking about Drew Dalman, when he said, listen, there's so many things that Drew does that just make it difficult just with his hands, just the start, just up top. There's so many things that he does to make it difficult. That's not even to mention what he's able to do with the footwork and all the other things that are going to end up being an asset for Caleb Williams in the long run. So that's, to me, where we're starting the conversation. I love the fact that Drew Dalman comes in here. I think that this was probably the worst kept secret of the offseason, and it feels like that could be, I mean, listen, when you talk about impact, that's the one that you need to have an immediate impact. Will it be the one that has the most immediate impact? I think as we go through, we'll kind of try and see, who we feel has the most immediate impact. Let me know how you guys feel in the comments. Which free agent do you think will end up having the most immediate impact on the Chicago Bears team as a whole? But I think, to me, when you talk about the conversation on the guy who's touching the football the most, Drew Dalman seems like the obvious answer because of not only the smarts, the skill, but you're also, I think you're literally getting everything you had intelligence-wise from Coleman Shelton last season. But hey, this guy stops people. This guy blocks. And at the end of the day, that's the basis of the job here, right? Like, hey, do you go out and block? Oh, yeah, I do. Oh, okay, you're hired. I think the fact, though, that you're also adding him in with Jonah Jackson, who, listen, the more I've watched Jonah Jackson's tape back from when he was in Detroit, I can see how it fits here. It seems like the consistent conversation around him has been what a lot of people said. Well, Pat, it's just the injury concern. It's just the injury concern. It was just not that it was, it was just, he was out of position and they just didn't utilize him right. He was they played him at center. There was the injury concern, dealt with the injury, which he said was a freak injury. When we were talking to him on, when was Jonah Jackson? Wednesday. Thursday? Wednesday. Today's Friday. When we were talking to him on Wednesday, it was the conversation on what happened to him was like, basically he had an injury that usually only happens in very severe car crashes. And somehow that happened to him on a third down drill. So, football. But to me, I think that if you're going to talk about somebody coming in and having an impact, what what Jonah Jackson was able to do in the run game up in Detroit, you see why he made the Pro Bowl. What Jonah Jackson was able to do with the run game up in Detroit, you see why he made the Pro Bowl. I mean, he was a force. And what excites me is the conversation that we used to have about Darnell Wright and Tevin Jenkins on that right side. Now, Jonah Jackson, not anywhere near the same kind of stature as Tevin Jenkins. Tevin Jenkins is a big boy. Tevin Jenkins walks into the room, Tevin Jenkins is in the room. Tevin Jenkins is a big boy. But when you look at the right side of that line now, if healthy with Jonah Jackson out there, I mean, you're talking about having a couple of road graders on that right side, just in the run game. How much is that going to help Caleb Williams? And I think that's the part that we don't talk about enough, right? We always say, well, this is going to help DeAndre Swift. This is going to help him in the run game. This is going to make this work here. No. Getting that run game established, being able to run that outside zone to that right side, that's going to be pivotal for being able to make some of those naked boots work that we saw from Caleb Williams last season, for being able to make some of the play action passes work that we saw from last season. Having a run game that is a real threat. That's what this also feels like. Drew Dahlman also excellent in running the outside zone. Like, those are the things that I think when you talk about an impact on a team, when you talk about, and at the end of the day, the impact on Caleb Williams, that's the number one conversation we literally need to have. How does this all impact Caleb Williams? To me, when you talk about Jonah Jackson impacting this running game, he's going to be a pivotal piece. Not only in the improvement of Caleb and how he's going to be able to make things work in the play action, but dare I say, adding some stability finally to Darnell Wright. Please help Darnell Wright become that guy that we all believe that he is, that we see him being able to be. But every time we want to look at him and go, I really like what I saw. He's got Matt Pryor standing next to him, and Matt Pryor's fighting for his life. And you got freaking Darnell Wright on the right side trying to figure out, okay, who the heck do I block? I got 5 guys over here. That is going to be huge for the Chicago Bears, especially on the right side of that line. Let me know who you guys are rocking with. Dewan Thread said, did the Bears cut last year's O-lineman, or do they move to second string? Some of them have been moved on. Some of them have moved to second string in some capacity. Ryan Bates is still here. I would assume that he is now back to being a backup player. Depending on if the Chicago Bears want to cut him or not. He is $4 million on the books if the Bears do want to go out there and cut him. Who else am I? Coleman Shelton signed back with the Rams. Shout out to him, which I think tells you kind of where the center market is at, right? In my mind, that just screams, this is where the center market's at. Coleman Shelton's back with the Rams. Coleman Shelton's not good. Well, you get what you get. Larry Borum signed with the Dolphins. So some of the pieces have moved on, but that's fine. Again, you've never had an opportunity to invest in the trenches like this. You've never had an opportunity to invest in the trenches like this. Again, we're talking about investing at a 1983 level. You can go out in free agency and you've signed all of these names, and guess what? You can go into the draft, and if you want to finish off the offensive line, let me get an Armand Membu. If you want to finish off the offensive line, let me get a Josh Simmons to stand in there next to Joe Thuney and learn while being next to an all-pro veteran. If I want to invest in the defensive line, there's a million names I can take. Not a million, but y'all know what I'm saying. That's the part that excites me about this offseason. By the way, we are over 200. Good morning. Now, we talked about those two on the right side. I think when you talk about your left guard position, bringing in Joe Thuney was a surprise. And I love how Ryan Post talked about I think Courtney asked him, when did you know that you were going to be able to get Joe Thuney? And I think in our minds, right, we think there's this FBI agent that like swoops in whenever news is about to break, and he like lets the GMs and stuff. Hey, we got word. Joe Thuney's going to be available. You probably want to get on the phone right now. This is something you're going to need. I love that Ryan Poles is like, yeah, I found out on social media and I made a call. But again, that shows you how in lockstep this team is. Ben Johnson talked about having a clear direction. Ben Johnson talked about having a clear direction and a clear message on the type of players that he wanted. So that when news like this breaks, that, hey, Joe Thuney has been made available. The second you see that come across the docket, you want him? Bet we'll get him. What was it? 40 minutes later, a deal was worked out. You can move quickly that way when you have that clear-cut direction. But now Joe Thuney on that left side. What is he going to bring to the Chicago Bears? Here's the one thing that I've said about the Joe Thuney trade and the eventual extension that should be coming here. I would hope soon. Joe Thuney, number one, talent-wise, is going to be a monster on the left side. He's going to be immensely valuable to whoever the left tackle on that side is. I think that if it's Braxton Jones, and I know that we've all had our conversations about Braxton, we've all had kind of, this is who he is, this is where he's at, you know what I mean? He's going to help Braxton Jones take another step. You throw Karan in there, he's going to make the transition into that starting left tackle a lot easier when you got Joe Thuney standing next to you. You go out and you get a rookie left tackle that you feel is going to be the left tackle of the future. He is going to help that young man be able to figure things out fairly quickly. And so those to me, number one, that's immensely valuable from that starting point as well, just because of the talent that he has. But number two, we talked about this a lot last season, how there were just no leaders on the Chicago Bears offensive line. By the way, 185 in the building, 35 likes on the video. Hit that like button. What we doing out here? There were just no leaders on the offensive line for the Chicago Bears or defensive line. You had nobody that you looked at and you were like, oh well, that's the identity of the team. That's the focal point. That's the guy that's going to get people in line. That's how the Nate Davises happen. And not to keep bringing that name up, but that name is the biggest example of a failure of the previous regime, and how it was allowed to go on for 2.5 years is absolutely beyond my mind. That doesn't happen if Joe Thuney's here. I'll tell you what, standing across on the other side, that doesn't happen with Grady Jarrett here. There's leadership that has now entered into this locker room, and there's leadership that the Chicago Bears need. There's guys that go about their business, do their job the right way, and expect other people on this team to do their job the right way. Novel concept. Are you telling me you want me to not only come to work, but also work? What? Relax. I think the trading for Joe Thuney it wasn't expected, but trading for Joe Thuney, as far as what he brings from a leadership perspective, that is something to me that is unmatched. That is something to me that when you talk about an immediate impact, that's how you get everybody together. That's how you get everybody on the same accord, on the same page. That's how you build a foundation that's going to last past Joe Thuney. The one thing that I do find interesting about this the Kansas City Chiefs feeling okay moving on from Joe Thuney after voting him the MVP of their team is that you were so okay with the foundation that your offensive line had built up that you were fine moving on from a piece that is that valuable. He wasn't expecting to get moved. You could see it in his face when we talked to him. He was stunned that he ended up getting traded away. But that's the business of this game. And if they want to save money, they want to go out there and not have to, they didn't have the room to keep both, so they move on from Thuney, fine with me. Because to me, the stability that he's going to bring to this Chicago Bears offensive line is going to be absolutely invaluable. I did peep that, Dexter. All the critics. All of the critics. Thuney's older. 4-time Super Bowl champ. But he's over the hill. Laremy Tunsil to Washington. What again? That's different. It's a left guard versus a left tackle, but it is funny. It is funny seeing that conversation. I've seen some of that same rhetoric. When you look at the offensive line right now, who's the person that you think makes the most immediate impact? Is it Drew Dolman? Is it Joe Thuney? Is it Jonah Jackson? I think there's immense impact from all three that's going to be very beneficial, and the goal is to get them all to work together. But who do you think is going to have the most impact when they hit the ground running? We're going to take a quick break before we get over to the defensive side of things and look at some of those free agents. Hit that like button, subscribe to the page. More coming from you guys next. We're going to talk in the comments with you as well, so drop your comments in, and we're going to take a look at this defensive line. But first, we're going to take a quick break. Let's do a word from our sponsors. Cue the aura music. Appreciate you guys for tuning in and watching the show. Today's episode of the podcast is brought to you by Aura. Have you ever done a Google search on your own name? You'd be surprised what pops up. Your full name, email address, home address, health records, your relatives. It's all out there. And that's why I've been using Aura, the sponsor of today's video. Aura shows me which data brokers are selling my information and automatically submits opt-out requests just for me. Cleaning up my information not only helps reduce the amount of spam I get, but it protects me from hackers who could use that information to help them access my social media, bank accounts, and other sensitive information. It's really simple to set up. I don't have to download several apps or go to things like antivirus, VPN, password management, parental controls, identity theft, but you can get all of that in one place with Aura. I get everything at one affordable price as well. You may already have one or two of these tools, but not having Aura is like leaving the front door locked while leaving the back door and windows wide open. For you to be able to take advantage of Aura, we got a special deal for you here today. Stop data brokers from exposing your personal information. Go to my sponsor at https:/aura.com/the Windy City. Again, that is aura.com/the Windy City to get a 14-day free trial and see how much of your information is being sold. Welcome back. Appreciate y'all for tuning in and showing love, man. Hit that like button, subscribe to the page. Leave a 5-star review. Y'all know what to do.
Chicago sports.
Talked about the offensive side, some of the players that have been added in free agency that we think will have an impact, but who will have the most immediate impact? Take a look at the defensive side and then get down to the nitty-gritty on it. Appreciate y'all for tuning in and rocking with us as always, man. Thank God it's Friday. Thank God it is Friday. I am ready for the weekend to be here. I am ready to just be able to sit back. I mean, these weeks are always fun as far as, you know, the Bears are making moves and they're, you know, there's stuff to talk about. It makes the job easy, right? When you've got free agent signings, when you've got people, but whoo, let me tell you something. This has been a week of just like, what? Go again. All right, here we go. All right, okay, we got news. Here we go again. All right, let's go again. It's just been one of those weeks where every day is something to talk about. But that means that every day is something where you just gotta, here we go. And y'all know how I am, dog. When it was some news break, I'm getting hyped. So as soon as I seen the Thuney news, the Jackson news, oh, here we go. Gonna be interesting to see who has the most impact immediately. Let's look at the defensive side. I'm gonna start with Dio. I was a little disappointed yesterday. I had heard his name was Dio Dangbo. It's Dio. I was a little disappointed. I like doing it. Dio. No, I can't do it. You can't do it with Dio. Dio. Maybe you can. It kind of works. Dio. Daylight come, baby, no wanna go home. It might work. We'll see. Dio Dangbo. Got to talk with him yesterday. I mean, listen, the conversation with the impact that he can have. And I thought that it was very, first off, he's very well spoken, but I thought that it was very well brought out over the last couple of days. Impact that can be had just by actually consistently being around the quarterback. And what I mean by that is, when you look at what he did last year, you can look at the quarterback sack numbers and say, wow, this guy was not the guy that you want to be paying $16 million to. Why did the Chicago Bears go out there and give him this much money? Why? Like, that's the guy that you want opposite of Montez Sweat. But I thought he said it very, very well yesterday. I'll bet you that DA would rather have an interception than he would a sack. And of course, you want the sack numbers. You want to be a sack leader. You want to be at the top of the charts. You don't want to just be the guy that does the things that don't show up in the stat sheets. You want to do the things that show up in the stat sheet. But if I'm talking about having an impact, I would rather have an impact by forcing the quarterback to make a mistake that somebody else can take advantage of. And it was almost a pride in him doing the little things, the intangibles. Not to say that he still can't have the big sack seasons. He had an 8-sack season, which is something that I think he could continue to do here. But are you doing the little things? Are you beating your man on the other side and getting pressure on the quarterback? Are you forcing the quarterback into sacks? Are you forcing the quarterback into bad situations? I think when you look at this defensive line, and I said this when the signing was made, Dayo Odeyingbo is going to be somebody who, give it 3 weeks. Give it 3 weeks. And Bears fans are going to be in love with this signing, just like how the Alex Caruso signing went. I said give it 20 games. It took about 10. Honestly, it took about 5. But to me, when you talk about somebody who is consistently adding pressure, pressure forces quarterbacks to make mistakes. Mistakes force the defense to look good. And again, when you talk about the fact that 67% of the plays that he was on the field for last season either went for a tackle for loss or no gain. Listen, that's a good piece to add. That's a piece to me that I think is one that you look at and you go, yes, I don't see the numbers that I want to see, but it doesn't mean that those numbers can't exist. What are you doing on a play in and play out basis to make an impact? I love the signing of Dayo Odeyingbo. I think this is going to be a huge impact piece for the Chicago Bears over the next few years to come. And of course, right, you do want him to take that next step. You want him to fill out kind of the Cam Jordan role on this team. And he talked about it yesterday. He said he's watched a ton of Cam Jordan film because of the similar body type. And he's like, I'm just a fan of football, dog. I just love to watch and talk and play football. So when you talk about, somebody who is able to, somebody you can now study who and be in the same defense that he was in and see how that was utilized, I think that's going to have an uptick in those sack numbers as well. But the one thing that I don't want to see leave is the tackles for loss, the quarterback hits, the pass rush win rate. Because those are the things that when the sacks aren't consistent, are you consistently impacting a game? How many players are great at getting sacks, but they don't consistently impact a game? I think there's a lot of them. I think there are players that you see where they'll get 2-3 sacks in a single game, and then they'll have a couple of weeks where they don't get it. Well, now you're basically at a sack a game, though. They'll have a couple of weeks where you kind of go, okay, well, all right. You need to see more from him. Yeah, we didn't really see him get to the quarterback. He may have been around the quarterback, but we really didn't see him get to the quarterback. We didn't see him force that pressure that we normally are used to seeing him see. How many guys are like that? I think that is kind of who Leonard Floyd is. Leonard Floyd is finishing seasons consistently with 10.5 sacks. And yet teams don't really want to keep him around. Because there's too many of those moments. There's too many of those games where you go, yeah, but you're not impacting then. That's when I need you to impact. I would rather have the guy who's in the quarterback's face all day, week in and week out. And maybe he comes away with 5 sacks in that entire process. But the entire time, you're forcing quarterbacks to move, duck. Am I telling you that guy's a Hall of Famer? No, not going to have the numbers for it. But I would rather have the guy that's forcing a quarterback to think, where are you? While having the other guy on the other side in a Montez Sweat, or having a guy in the middle in a Grady Jarrett who, now they're getting the sack. And so, again, I keep saying I think Dio Dambo is going to be one of the best signings the Chicago Bears have this season. I think he's going to be hugely impactful. I think that if we're talking about the most immediate impact, to me, he's somebody who he just helps you hit the ground running defensively. He helps you force takeaways. He helps you put the ball back in Caleb Williams' hand. And at the end of the day, that's what this is about. All the acquisitions, all of the signings, all of these moves that are made are for the Chicago Bears, yes, but it is about giving Caleb Williams the best opportunity to go out there and be successful, and I think that he impacts that in a very heavy way. In fact, I would say, I'm not going to give him the number one in my mind. I'm not going to give him the number one, but if you told me he's in the top 3 guys, I would agree with that. If you told me he's in those top 3 impact guys, I would agree with that. I think he'll be a top 3 impact player on the Chicago Bears this year. We'll see. And of course, the final signing that was made, well, not the final signing. We did sign a wide receiver yesterday, but I don't think he's going to make the impact list. I'm not going to lie to you. But the final signing that was made was the Grady Jarrett trade. The Grady Jarrett signing after he was released from the Atlanta Falcons. Again, another surprise move. I think it's going to make number one, it's going to make things easier for Drew Dahlman, who's going to be able to go into practice and be able to practice against somebody he's used to practicing against. That those transitions can be tough sometimes, where it's like new place, new environment, new teammates. And Dahlman talked about it yesterday, right? Like the Bears offensive line room, does he expect to be a leader on that offensive line room? And he was like, I got to get to know everybody first before I start. I got to prove myself before I feel like I can start being a leader in that locker room. You know what I mean? So I'm not there yet. But I think that transition is made easier by the Grady Jarrett acquisition because, again, somebody who can ingratiate themselves to you. Grady's a big personality. He's going to be the voice of that locker room, shall we say. I think that he's going to be somebody who is immensely impactful for this team, not just on the field. And I've talked about it a couple of times, right? How I feel like he's going to be the kind of the Andrew Billings or he's going to be that piece that allows Andrew Billings to be unlocked as a run stuffer yet again, because I think the focus on Andrew Billings last season was to be a pass rusher. Now you're talking about him going out there and being able to stop the run. To me, that's an exciting spot to be in. Oh, by the way, he's also really good at football. By the way, in the passing downs, he's also going to be able to pin his ears back and absolutely dent the pocket. Him and Javon Dexter together, what kind of impact is that going to have on the team? Grady Jarrett, I think, is going to be one of those emotional leaders, one of those guys who, to me, like those are the I said he reminds me a lot of D-Walk and how he talks, except there's the production and the numbers to back up the talk. He reminds me a lot of DeMarcus Walker with the way he talks, but there's the production and there is the longevity and the consistency in his career. For the Chicago Bears to be able to not only hear the words, but actually feel the impact. And have a reason to go out there and go, oh, okay, well, he's done this for this long. This is why you should listen to him. And even when asking him about, I asked him about the accountability word that's been thrown out here a ton. And, how do you hold your teammates accountable without, being disrespectful and getting to a point where everybody's not marching toward the same goal? And his answer was perfect. Like it was, it's about what I do. It's about the work that I put in. And I know if I'm putting in the work that I'm going to expect you to put in the same amount of work as I'm putting in. It's about what I do. It is, and that's where it starts with leadership, though. It's not about what you do. At the end of the day, you're going to do what you're going to do because you're your own person. But if I'm leading the way, it's about how I started, how people look at me, And then if you look at me and I'm doing all that I can and I ask of you, hey, can you do a little bit more? Now I'm coming at it from the right place. And a lot of times it's not even, hey, I'm not telling you to be me. I'm telling you to be the best you that you can be. And I think that's the kind of impact that Grady Jarrett is going to have on this team, on this defensive line, right? Asking the most out of these guys. Again, you're talking about similar leadership to what Joe Thuney brings on the defensive side. I think it's something that is needed in that defensive line room. I hope that it impacts, what we see out of Zach Pickens. I hope that it impacts another step out of Javon Dexter, because those are the guys that are going to make the most difference. Those are the most important pieces in a 4-3 defense. Those guys in the middle that can dent the pocket. If you can get pressure with 4, we just saw it. We just saw it in the Super Bowl. If you can get pressure with 4, you are deadly. And if the Bears can find a way to get pressure with Dio Odengbo, Grady Jarrett, Andrew Billings, and/or Javon Dexter, and Montez Sweat. And now we got Jalen Johnson shadowing the best wide receiver on the team, moving around. Oh, wait a minute. Now Tyreek Stevenson is consistently guarding the number 2. Wait. Now all of the DBs we got are being put in a position where it's not just sit back and wait for the wide receiver to come to you, but be aggressive. Wait a minute. You're using guys to the best of their ability now in that situation. And so for me, when I look at all of the names, before we get out of here, appreciate y'all for tuning in and showing love. Hit that like button, subscribe to the page, leave a 5-star review. Y'all know what to do. When I look at all of the names, for me, the name that I think is going to have the most impact right away, the name that I think is going to help Caleb Williams the most right away, the name that I think is going to be, dare I say, the franchise changing piece right away, I have to go with the vet. I have to go with Joe Thuney. I think you can look at all of these pieces, and if I was going to go top 3, I would go Joe Thuney. I would go Drew Dahlman. I would go Dio Odengbo. But again, that's a conversation that I think you have to have for not just now, but also long-term impact. I think you're talking about an immediate impact in having Joe Thuney on this offensive line, getting guys in order. I think you're talking about now having real leaders in the locker room that aren't going to stand for any of the BS. And dare I say, you're going to have 2 guys in Joe Thuney and Grady Jarrett that when they're in the locker room may actually go at it because they view things differently, except it's for the benefit of the Bears team in the long run of the season, versus going at it because we think that you suck, you think that we suck, and so now we're just having a disagreement. I think that you have leaders in this locker room, and that was something that I left last season questioning. And when you have leaders that are the big bodies up front, that are the guys that are protecting the quarterback, that are the guys who, listen, Joe Thuney's job for his entire career has been protect Tom Brady, protect Patrick Mahomes. That's a heck of a job to have. I think that impact is going to be the most important for the Chicago Bears. Not just from a fundamentals and football standpoint, but from an absolutely, hey, listen, This is the guy in charge. I think what it also does too is it puts a battery in Caleb's back to be the leader that he wanted to be last season, but he didn't want to step on toes. How many times last season did Caleb talk about, I wanted to call a timeout there, but I didn't know if that was the right move, so I just followed the head coach's decision making on that. No. Timeout. You have to call a timeout there. I think it's the trust, it's the confidence, all of those things that play into helping Caleb Williams to become a better quarterback, to become a better leader. That's where it starts for me. Do you have the confidence to be the leader that you believe that you should be? Last season, Caleb didn't want to step on toes. He didn't want to overstep his bounds, all of that stuff. We're not doing that this season. And I think Joe Thuney helps with that process as well. Hey, man, I appreciate you guys for tuning in and showing love. Hit that like button, subscribe to the page. Leave a 5-star review. Y'all know what to do. A lot of content, as always, coming you guys' way. Going to be heading down to record the Chicago Bears podcast today, so stay tuned in with us on that as well. If any news breaks, y'all know that we'll be right here with it as well. Also, tap in if you're a Bulls fan, tap in with the Chicago Bulls Breeze. We got content coming out over there as well. Plenty of content coming that way, and of course, the Daily Show as always, man. It's your boy Pat the Designer, back at it again. Y'all stay safe out there, Chicago. Bear down, one love. Make sure you have yourself a great weekend, and don't do anything I would do. Peace.
Best show for Chicago sports.
Oh my God!